Hello. Please let me welcome you from St. Petersburg State Technical University and Russian Astrobiology Center. I'm going to give you an overview of the theories concerning life origin. And I hope that I was able to cover all the issues, but if not, you may ask me questions later on. First of all, here is the presentation overview. We will give the definitions on what is life and what is living matter, and how does life evolve, and what are the prerequisites of it. Then a short introduction, some historical background, how people thought it happened before, during Pasteur and Darwin time, and then I will speak briefly about Miller's experiment, which is one of the most important experimental proofs of life origin theories. Then proceed to early Earth conditions and have an overview about current models, which are generally common at present time. Also, then I would like to speak about some alternative models of life origin, and then I will give you a short summary of presentation. So first of all, we should figure out what is chemical evolution, and right now it is supposed to be the study of how life on Earth could appear from non-organic matter, and the main atoms which took part in the appearance of living system are carbon, nitrogen, CNOHS. And the building blocks of life are mainly amino acids, then which the monomers of amino acids are polymers of amino acids are proteins, then nucleic acids, which are mediators of the protein construction, and information transmitters as well. Of course, we will speak about lipids, who are structural units of any living cell, and generally discuss the question of how life originated. So it could be a question of how the first nucleic acid arose. As we already heard from Alexandra's presentation, our planet is more than 4.5 billion years old, and the first living things found on Earth are supposed to be single-cell prokaryotes. We can also date the oldest ancient fossil. It is as old as 3.5 billion years old. So we can assume that the life on Earth, or at least first living systems, appeared quite quickly after the formation of the planet itself. So the question is, what sequence of chemical events led to the first living organism? What happened? Why it appeared so quickly? I would like to give the definition of life as a living matter. So first of all, there are two key features that are typical for living systems. First of all, it is the capacity of self-replication. So living organisms, whether it is a cell or a big organism, should be able to produce copies of itself. Then these copies should evolve. They should not stay. As they were initially. So this is the capacity to undergo Darwinian evolution. So these organisms and these systems should be subject to natural selection, improving the initial choice of improving the initial situation. So working definition of life is the self-sustaining chemical system capable of undergoing Darwinian evolution. To proceed with this evolution, we need to have energy, materials, and some exterior, some surrounding. that let cells or molecules to grow and to replicate. First of all, materials. What do we need for construction of a primitive cell? It is the same material for both human organisms and bacteria. It's first carbon, which is one of the most abundant elements in the universe and on Earth as well. So it's unique because it has certain properties. Carbon can form chemical bonds with various atoms. Thus, it is able to shape up as different molecules. It can interact with metals, and its derivatives are soluble in water, in liquid water. Apart from carbon, we have nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen, which are the most abundant non-noble gas elements in the universe. We should also mention sulfur and phosphorus, which are important in and which are the compounds of biological molecules. So at present time, we know only organic life based on carbon. And all currently known theories take carbon derivatives as its base. It's one of the prerequisites of life, the presence of carbon. Then the environment. Life needs some medium where molecules can move, can dissolve, and can interact. So water in this case is a perfect solvent. It has a wide temperature range where it exists as a liquid. So it's not too cold for biochemical reactions and not too hot to destroy the chemical bonds. Besides, it's a polar solvent. It has differently charged sides. You know, one is charged positively, the molecule of water, dipole. The water molecules, they interact with themselves and dissolve polar organic molecules with high affinity. So we can conclude that water is another important prerequisite of life. Then, number 3, building blocks of life. What do we need to construct cells? Proteins. First of all, it's the most complex macromolecular molecules found in living systems. They actually represent long chains of amino acids linked together. And the sequence of amino acids, of 20 main amino acids, give every protein its function. So the function of protein appears due to the sequence of amino acids. We can say that proteins are one of the most important of life chemicals and have different functions, just to name structural and catalytical. Then nucleic acids. These molecules are much bigger than the amino acids, and they represent individual nucleotides linked together in linear polymers, long chains of polymers. Here we have some picture so you can see the structure of nucleotides. So it consists of base of a phosphate group and a sugar. So each nucleotide contains 5 carbon sugar, 1 or more phosphate group, and nitrogenous base. And the most important discovery in this area was the structure of DNA, which was revealed by Watson and Crick in 1953. And it helped to understand the mechanism of replication. So in the lower part of the screen, you can see the picture where 3 phosphate groups are linked together to the nucleotide. So nucleoside, then 1 phosphorus group is nucleotide monophosphate, then diphosphate and triphosphate. Here are the bases. We should also mention lipids, which are the diverse group of molecules, have 1 hydrophobic and 1 hydrophilic end, And this structure lets them to be organized as the layers. They are poorly solved in water, and they come as aggregates, not as individual molecules. So properties of lipids are that they can store energy, and they have weak bonding in between. So it results in a high degree of flexibility, which is quite useful for construction of membranes. I mean, membranes of living cells. Carbohydrates, sugars, molecules that have many hydroxyl groups attached, and these groups are also polar, and this molecule is soluble in water as well. Polysaccharides consist of individual monomers, and they are also used as an energy storages and can provide, besides structural support for organisms. Sugars are also included in nucleotides. I'd like to say a couple of words about chirality, although this is a very big topic which cannot be revealed in a structure, in a frame of our lecture. So these are chiral molecules. They have identical chemical formula, but different structural arrangements. So they are shaped up like two hands. And in living systems, only one type of molecules are used, at least of amino acids. Usually, if you go to a chemical mixture, it will be a racemic mixture, so where proportion of L and D forms is almost equal. And prebiotic synthesis will provide a racemic mixture, but not in nature. In nature, one form dominates the other. As I told you, all 20 amino acids which are used in living cells, in structures, are L forms, while sugars, for example, in nucleic acids, are D forms. In the extraterrestrial material found, for example, in meteorites, carbonaceous chondrites, scientists found L forms prevailing. And this is an indication that life in general, at least those living forms, existed before life on Earth. So there are several ideas of how these different shapes of molecules could appear, how they could evolve. And one is that this is a result of action of ultraviolet polarized light, circular polarized light. Then, to construct some chemical reaction, to start it, we definitely need certain energy impact, and we can think about energy sources that are currently present in, for example, outer space, and that were present on the primordial primitive Earth. So, total sun radiation is the prevailing source of energy, and it consists of ultraviolet, which is quite important. It is sufficient in biological reactions. Also, lightning provides the energy of discharges, and we have cosmic rays and radioactivity, external and internal. In the primitive Earth, for example, during the volcanic eruption, volcanoes provide a certain amount of energy, and shock waves as well after meteorite impact, for example. In the historical background, there were certain theories which tried to describe how living organisms appeared. And if we go back to the history, to Aristotle, for example, he supposed that living organisms appeared suddenly and spontaneously from non-living matter. So the idea that living matter is related to non-living matter is already quite old. Examples were for dead leaves falling from the tree, then later turned into fishes, and those leaves who were on the soil transformed into insects and some worms. Egyptians who were very much fond of the river Nile, they believed that everything originated from the mud of the Nile River. So Nile was the beginning of everything. And this idea of spontaneous generation was quite popular until 17th century, and it was disproved later due to the experiments of Louis Pasteur, Francesco Redi, Spallanzani, and many other researchers who showed that that it is not possible. So to start produce something, you should have some basic material. So scientists gave definite proof that life comes from pre-existing life. Just forms are different. As I told you, the works of Louis Pasteur contributed greatly to destroy this theory of spontaneous generation. And Pasteur noticed that the collapse of spontaneous generation didn't answer the question of how life had first arisen. It was just the constatation of fact that it appeared from this to this, but it didn't give any explanation. Charles Darwin proposed his theory in 1871, which is very much similar to what we think now. So life appeared in a warm little pond enriched with ammonia, phosphoric salt, having energy in forms of light, heat, electricity, so that protein was chemically formed and then able to undergo still more complex changes. So this is actually the formulation of evolution theory. Right now, such a matter would be instantly destroyed. But before that, where there were no living creatures, that was quite possible. So human beings are the most destructive factor right now. Later on, this theory was proposed independently by two scientists, Alexander Oparin in 1923 and Holden, an English scientist, in 1928. We should mind also, thinking about this theory, that at present time, at the early Earth, surface and atmosphere during the first billion years of its existence were different from what we have today. So the primitive terrestrial atmosphere was a reducing type, not oxidizing. And Oparin thought that first life arose from a collection of chemical substances, which were able to undergo a progressive series of chemical reactions. And solar radiation and heat were used as chief energy sources for these chemical processes. So this theory was later on tested by Stanley Miller, who was an American scientist, and he did a very simple but very effective experiment. And he was able to show that genius is thinking simple. So it was published in 1953, and the experiment included glassware, where chemical ingredients were added as gases like H2O, CH4, NH3, and electrical discharge was used as the source of energy, so simulating lightning. And then the derivatives were arriving to the reservoir, where they were later on analyzed. What is interesting that in 1928, in 2008, it was a reanalyzing of Miller's experiment, because they managed to find in archives several solutions from Miller's which were not analyzed before, and they were kept for many years. So Stanley Miller, he found 5 amino acids, and then in 2008 there were 22 amino acids extra. So actually, during that time, in 1953, he was not able to detect the whole range of products, but it was done later on with a big success. So now we will proceed to the theories, and I would like to show you this slide and to speak about two kinds of approaches. So there is a top-down approach from top to bottom, and bottom-up approach from bottom to top. So top-down approach means that you take existing cell and then to take away several genes from it, attempting to find the most minimal requirements for life, and then to base your presumptions on this experiment. And bottom-up approach is to having, it was a bottom-up approach. So it's having a protocell using basic components, which have the necessary properties of life. So both approaches are equal, and none of it is prevailing. This is also the time scale of evolution. I already mentioned several figures, and we know that that our planet existed 4.5 billion years ago, and we presume that chemical and molecular evolution started by that time. Then it was followed by biological evolution, and it was preceded by cosmic evolution. So the first fossil records, the first living systems, were already appeared 3.6 billion ago. That's why the period of appearance of life is quite short. It should be some reason for that phenomena. Why did it happen so quickly? That's why scientists and people in general are trying to think about it all the time, and that's why its question is so important. At the bottom part of this slide, you can see a bigger scale. So chemical evolution is just a part of this small arrow of time. I like this very much. I think it's very, it's showing very good how everything happened and what will be next, what will come next. So oceans might have appeared about 200 million years ago, right after the Earth was formed, in a quite hot and not friendly environment. And we know that there was a period of intensive bombardment during the history of the Earth formation. During this bombardment time, it's very likely that if there were any organic matter before that, it would have sterilized the bombardment. It would have sterilized the planet if life had appeared before that. So the period is actually even shorter, starting from 4.1 billion years. Then, if to speak about early conditions, we have deep marine hydrothermal vents, which have conditions very favorable to formation of organic matter. So in this environment, life could have appeared as long as 4.2 billion years ago. Then we have the surface of the Earth. Now we are talking about primordial Earth, primitive. The conditions were different, but they could suit different types of molecules. For example, synthesis of purines, it requires freezing temperatures, while the synthesis of another citizen and uracil may require boiling temperatures. So it's different conditions, but they also existed. For example, you can think about exploding meteorites and freezing conditions in the polar regions. There were also other indications that life existed already quite long ago. For example, ratio of carbon-13. And then if to think how much time is needed for develop 100 kilobase genome, for example, of DNA protein, into a 7,000 gene of the cyanobacterium, it would have required 7 million years. So the early atmosphere may have been chemically reducing, and it consisted of several types of gases: methane, ammonia, water, hydrogen sulfide, carbon dioxide or monoxide, and phosphate. Of course, molecular oxygen and ozone were quite rare or absent. This was a reducing atmosphere, and in this atmosphere we needed some electrical activity to catalyze the creation of monomers. So the fundamental question is about the nature of the first self-replicating molecule. So what happened first? Proteins first or nucleic acids first? So if to see about the difference between RNA, DNA, and protein, both DNA and RNA are quite long molecules, and protein is more organized into certain structures. Monomers could have been synthesized on Earth, on the surface, or in underwater, or wherever. Or another way, they could have arrived from outer space, which is an extraterrestrial external delivery. Then the selection process could have resulted in ribozymes, and they could later on catalyze the formation of small proteins. So this is just the sequence of events, how it could have happened. And finally, we come to nucleic acids that currently are used as a carrier of genomic information. First of all, I would like to mention the theory of panspermia, which presumes that life may have emerged independently from different space in the universe. An alternative point is that life comes from one location, appears in one location, and then spreads between habitable planets. So the proposed mechanism is interstellar. This is an exchange between star systems, or interplanetary. That means between planets in the same star system, like in the solar system. We should also think about how the material could be transported, and ideal candidates for this role is meteorites, for example. Small carriers which travel in the solar system or in even in the outside universe. And we have good proof that material is exchanging, that there is an exchange of material within solar system, at least because it is evidenced by meteorites from Mars. Here is the picture schematic how it can be transported. Another possibility is that the organic matter could be transported by comets. We heard in Alexander's lecture about Stardust mission to Comet Wild, and this is very popular, very interesting, and very big experiment, I would say, that showed us the presence of organic material in a Comet Wild. Also, glycine was detected in meteorite and in interstellar gas clouds, telescopic observations. That means that organic material is quite common for the solar system, at least. And we know that the solar system planets were regularly bombarded by comets. So that kind of exchange is quite possible. This theory is quite plausible. So fundamental blocks of life are relevant in space, and they could be carried by space carriers. Micrometeorites, which are falling in a big amount daily, even now. Then RNA world hypothesis proposes that life was based on ribonucleic acid, RNA. I would like to note that the current life is based on deoxyribonucleic acid, which is DNA. And RNA could be used as a universal molecule that can store an information like DNA and act as an enzyme, so to perform self-catalytic processes. And then this RNA world, which included just one molecule, could then have evolved later into the DNA world of today. And meanwhile, in the time frame, DNA, which possessed better chemical stability, just overtook the role of data storage. So, and one point that can prove the theory of RNA, just one, there are several, that the remnants in RNA in modern cells are ribosome RNA. This is the RNA in ribosome which catalyzes protein production. So this is supposed to be an evolutionary remnant of the RNA world. Then we should also mind the theory which includes organic and non-organic compounds. Right now we are speaking about hypothesis of iron-sulfur world, which was formulated by Bartishäuser. It's a different German surname to pronounce. And in contrast to Miller experiment, the Bartishäuser systems included already a built-in source of energy. So it didn't require external energy to start chemical processes. And this energy was obtained during chemical reactions, including pyrite, so derivatives of iron. And those mineral surfaces, non-organic surfaces, could be used as a certain matrix for the formation of organic molecules, such as nucleic acids that are polyanionic, and phosphorylated sugars. And so they help to keep the system together and served both as catalyzers and as sources of energy. So if such system could be established, it was able to evolve later on into a catalytic set of molecules which were self-replicating and metabolically active, which is a quite good model for the life forms that we know today. Then the theory of autocatalysis. So the idea is that life initially appeared as autocatalytic chemical networks. For example, autocatalysts are such substances that can produce themselves and can be a sort of chemical system, a simple molecular replicator. And the experiments proving this theory were performed by Julius Rebeck and his colleagues. The word isn't it here. They showed that the derivative of aminoadenosine 3-acid ester, AATE, was capable of self-replication. And they interpreted it as a form of natural selection. So if such chemical structures existed during the formation of early Earth, that means that they could take part in, they could evolve later on into chemical systems that we know right now. And we are now discussing the clay theory, and the surface of minerals were acting as a support structure for molecules, which let them accumulate and interact. But there were several pluses and minuses, pros and contras. So pros is that imperfections in the mother crystals were reproduced in the daughter crystals, but some additional imperfections were added. But for a gene-like behavior, additional imperfections should be much less than the parent one. Otherwise, it will be mutations that are lethal for the organism. So like every other theory, this has its advantages and this has its minuses. Then, as I already told you, on the primitive Earth, we had a lot of erupting volcanoes, underwater volcanoes. So, deep hot biosphere is the perfect environment for the development of the first life, several kilometers below the surface. Besides, there are minerals which can act as catalysts, and there are a lot of organic material which is available on the underwater level. So it can be used as a material for formation of complex molecules. And it is now well known that there is a big variety of microbial life under the water, up to 5 kilometers below the surface of the ocean. So if not to think how it appeared, we may think that there is an alternative to terrestrial abiogenesis. So primitive life may appear only extraterrestrially, in space or on planets. And one of the hypotheses is that life formed first on early Mars. And Mars cooled before Earth, and the prebiotic processes could take place on Mars. And at that time, our planet was still too hot. And then life was transported to the Earth by comets and asteroids. So that means that life can be found in a single location and then spread all around about the galaxy. But none of these hypotheses actually answers the question of how life first originated. But sometimes it is just shifted from one to another location, planet or comet. Then, as I promised to say a couple of words about lipid world, because lipids are important components of the cellular structure. So the idea that molecular composition of lipid bodies is also can serve as an information storage. And this theory postulates that the first self-replicating object was lipid-like. It's very plausible because phospholipids form bilayers in water, very easy. And it has the same structure as cell membranes. We should mind that these molecules were not present on early Earth, but there were other long-chain molecules, amphiphilic, who were able to form membranes. As nowadays, we know that evolution led to the appearance of DNA and RNA that can store information much better than any lipids. But when RNA and DNA is not available, this function may be attributed to lipids. So polyphosphate. The problem of the most scenarios is that we have thermodynamic equilibrium, and this equilibrium favors the separation of amino acids, not the formation of long molecules. There should be some force that could drive the polymerization to help shape up long molecules. Could be the resolution in properties of polyphosphates. Polyphosphates are formed by polymerization, and also they can be precursors in the synthesis of such key biochemical compounds as ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So it's included and it's used as an energy storage. So if to use the chemical energy stored in polyphosphate, maybe this can help to move the equilibrium to the side of formation long chains, long polypeptides. Then there were also certain ideas and hypotheses that included polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which are quite interesting substances, helping obtaining certain properties, certain qualities. There are some missing steps that are not included in RNA theory, and which are considered in the theory of PAH. They are likely the constituents of the primordial sea. They were present at the primordial sea. And these substances, these molecules, if they were treated by ionizing radiation, for example, UV light, they can become more soluble in water. Being modified, they form like lipids. They self-organize in stacks. And what is notable, that the separation between these rings, the distance between these stacks is the same as distance between bases in DNA and RNA. So if we have in the same solution molecules of pyrimidine and purine, for example, they can connect with this PAH stack organizing, and then the ribose chain can be formed efficiently. Having this structure, we need just to dissolve it. So if we have a small change in acidity, it can let the bases to break off from the original stack and to form molecules like RNA. So this is quite nice explanation of how structurally RNA molecule could be formed. So let me give you a brief summary of what I tried to tell you. First of all, life is a system capable of replicate and evolve. We told it from the very beginning. We know that all known life in present is based on water and carbon. Main molecules include proteins, nucleic acids, lipids, and carbohydrates. We should consider a number of extraterrestrial environments where organic matter is produced, and if it is produced externally, then it should be somehow delivered to the Earth or to any other place. In general, every theory presumes that complex molecules were initially synthesized by simple chemical reactions and then evolved. So this is the common thing in all the theories. More likely in early organisms that RNA performed the function of genetic store and catalyst. And at some time, the prebiotic soup, which is the liquid environment, would produce the first living organisms, possibly using mineral matrices, as it was shown in the theories, including organic and non-organic material. And right now we are in a biotic world, and life is ruled by DNA, RNA, and proteins. But that doesn't mean that everything stopped. Evolution goes on. So we have evolution of human mind, and this is another step. Okay, so here are the references. I'm sorry, I think that some of these pages were removed, but still we have the books of complete course on astrobiology and introduction of astrobiology. If you surf the web, you will find a number of materials related to this idea, to these topics, and mostly the NASA and ESA web pages. They have separate I'm run out of words. Okay, you just see there's a lot of information given there on all the subjects that I mentioned. Thank you for your attention.
For Alessandra from University of Napoli, I see that you're back. Are there any questions?
Just a second. Che cosa dicevi? He would like to know a bit more on the RNA hypothesis, RNA word hypothesis. Yes?
Okay. So, I mean, RNA world is such a great area. It's a big question with a lot of details that I think I'm just unable to cover the subject within frames of our lecture and also in one question. But I would say that currently it's one of the most important theories, which is well proved, and there is a lot of information, a certain type of experiments carried on. So I think that if there are certain details that you are interested in, you may easily find it in the internet or in the libraries or everywhere. So this theory is quite known. That's my message.
Okay, I will pass now to University of Turku. Are there any questions from there?
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Okay. One question. Natalia, thank you for introducing this very complex and complicated issue. I would like to ask, can you give some kind of a overall sequence of events that has taken place in the transition from the prebiotic chemistry to the first real living organism? So what kind of things had to happen, or what kind of processes?
So Kirsi, which is quite clever, I would say, scientist, and with different knowledges in all kind of areas, she definitely knows that this question is a weak point of the whole evolution theory, of the whole evolution process. So it's right now it's more or less understandable how basic molecules proceeded to more complex molecules, but we should presume that no one so far was able to construct first living cell. So there is a gap, theoretical and experimental, in this evolution scale in between complex molecules evolving, reproducing, making everything, but still we were not able, I mean the whole mankind was not able to construct first living cell functioning in vitro. And there are certain questions of how it what happened before it appeared. So it could not appear spontaneously. There were certain processes that led to it. But so far it's not yet clear.
Okay, I have one question and one comment. First of all, the sun about 4 billion years ago was fainter than now. It's believed to have been about 30%. And if you consider the distance to Mars, it's about twice the distance than what Earth is from the sun. This means that Mars received only an energy amount which is 15% of the present value. If you turn this into numbers and calculate the temperature of the Mars, you get something like 150 kelvins. This means that in order for life to emerge and to water stay in liquid form, you would have to have a greenhouse effect which is about 100 degrees. So that's quite a lot.
Yeah.
Do you have any ideas how we could have a 100-degree greenhouse effect? It's 3 times more than what we have on the Earth right now.
So you mean that on Mars there were not enough energy in general at that time to start chemical processes?
There could have been enough of energy, but you need a huge greenhouse effect to warm the surface so that water stays liquid there.
Okay, so there were not enough prerequisites, basic conditions for life to start on Mars.
That's one thing that we have to consider seriously, how to get the temperature.
Yeah. Well, maybe in early days the situation was different and Mars was warmer than the Earth, or could be that some other situation on a primitive Mars was different from, was more favorable, I would say, and in general more favorable. And also, to my mind, the Martian atmosphere is much weaker than terrestrial. So I would say that external energy was able to penetrate to the surface better than on Earth. So that could provide an extra energy for chemical processes to start.
Okay. Then I have a short comment about panspermia. As you mentioned, panspermia is possible between planets within our solar system, using asteroids, but not comets, because comets are too fluffy. And between stellar systems, it's only possible when the star is forming, say during the first few tens of millions of years. So right at the beginning, but after that, it's not possible anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I think that's all from here. Okay, that's all from Turku. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry.
Okay, thank you, Harry, for those questions. Do we have any questions from the University of Szczecin in Poland?
Thank you. Thanks for very interesting talks. And I'm curious about the scenario for origin of life. I mean, in the context of the energy which is used by the primitive organism at the very beginning. I mean, it could happen, as you, Natalia, very nicely described. It could happen, I mean, deep in the water, in the ocean. It could happen also on the surface. So what is your feeling? I mean, which place is more suitable for origin of life? I mean, if it's that, I mean, organisms which are using chemical energy got some more preferences, or those who could already make use of the sunlight. So can you comment on that?
I have a strong feeling that to make life appear as quick as it did, we need a combination of several theories. So I think that there was an external delivery and internal processes that led to the appearance of life. I think that different forms of energies could be combined, and living organisms, living structures, they use whatever form of energy that was available. So they had to be very quick in seizing what was there around them. I think this is the easiest explanation of how it all could happen so quickly.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Natalia. Thanks.
Okay, so I think we have no more questions here, but certainly these two talks have been for us a bombardment of organic food for our ideas, for new ideas in astrobiology. So I wish to thank both lecturers of today. Thank you very much.